What you just saw me doing was drawing my first batch of syrup. I used a device called the hydrometer to check the syrup's density. When the hydrometer floats on the red line, it's the correct density to be syrup. Sometimes when we draw syrup, it's too heavy, and we have to add lighter syrup to bring it to the correct density. I've just added a drop of defoamer. It's an oil that takes and cuts the foam right back to keep it inside the pans. Looking at the gauge that shows us how much sap is left in our tank. It looks like we have about 30 minutes of boiling left. What you're looking at is the steam hood I designed to draw the steam out of the sugar house. Without this steam hood, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. We're going to check and see if it's syrup. We're going to do an apron test. Looks like it's syrup. The syrup is coming off in nice sheets. We're drawing off the syrup, and we're going to draw it off until the temperature goes back on the gauge, and then I'll check it for density. I'm mixing up the syrup. We're going to take our hydrometer and check it for density. We're right on the syrup line there for this temperature. We're going to dump the hot syrup into the filter tank. There's two filters in this tank, a rayon filter and a felt cone filter. In order to get the syrup through the filters, we have to dump it in right off the evaporator. I'm looking into the rear of the evaporator to make sure that the proper level is maintained. It's 10 of 10 and we're out of sap. It's time to turn the oil burner off. What we're going to do is can our syrup. It's important that we can our syrup hot at 180 degrees or hotter. I allow the syrup to set for a minute to allow air bubbles to escape. Now we're going to do a grade test to determine what grade of syrup we have. We've just filled the sample vial that we used to do our grade test. We stick it in our color comparator and we hold it up to the light. And if you notice that this one is just a shade lighter than that dark amber comparator, so we can call this dark amber syrup. I use a permanent glass type maple syrup grading comparator approved by the USDA. The other type of grading comparator is made of burnt sugar and glycerol. It is a temporary kit and has to be replaced every year. This is the temporary type of maple syrup comparator. We finished up for the night. It's been a good night. Made 3 gallons and it put us over our 100-gallon mark by 1 gallon. We're nearing the end of our program. Earlier today in our sugar bush we looked at both plastic tubing and buckets. I'd like to take a moment and talk about these. In my lap I have a bucket. I have found that in my sugar bush I get more sap per tap with a bucket than I do with the tubing. Also, it keeps the sap cooler, which produces a better grade of syrup. The disadvantages to a bucket is it's very labor intensive to collect your sap, especially if your buckets are located in an inaccessible area. The cost is also very expensive. A complete setup of a bucket, cover, and a spout will run you $11.75 versus a tubing setup, which is about $3 per tap. And don't forget, at the end of the season you have to wash all these buckets, and that's really labor intensive. In my hands I have a piece of plastic tubing. To clean this at the end of the season, we use a pack pump and flush water back through every spout. And then what I choose to do is I plug the spout off and leave the pipeline hanging in the woods, all set for the following year. An interesting fact is that a Manchester man named George Breen invented the tubing system for the maple sap collection. This concludes our program. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.